Welcome to APCUG's Wednesday workshop, where we get together in the middle of the week to learn more about technology. We've got two different presentations today. We have a lot of people who have come. We don't know which part of it is, whether it's for free open source software or for how do you cut your technology connection off or something, but we're glad to have all of you with us today. Nobody's new in terms of presenting, so you're just stuck with me and you're stuck with Judy, and you know us, so there's no need to do any kind of introduction or whatever. So we'll just get our thing started right away. Exciting number. We're here to talk about free open source software. February is Open Source Software Month, so we decided that we were going to have a presentation on that. And that's just the technicalities for the slideshow and the computer. I'm going to talk about different types of software to get kind of a basis going on this. First off, there's two types that I called closed source software, CSS, and open source software, which is the OSS. And so the question always comes up to me when I do these presentations asking about, well, closed source, open source, what's the scoop? You know, how are they different? Explain it to me. And luckily, you've got a person who was a retired elementary teacher, so I have good ways to explain it. And today, I'm going to explain it by talking about potlucks. So if anybody who just now joined this workshop wondering what in the world they got into, because we're talking about potlucks, let me explain. We've all gone to potlucks. Most of our clubs have summer potlucks and picnics and fall, maybe holiday ones. And when you've gone to a potluck, somebody brings in a dish and you go and check it out and you really, really like it. And you've got another family reunion coming up or a holiday party where you got to take something and you'd really like to take that dish to your next potluck. So you end up going to and finding the person that brought that, and you ask them, that was great. I'd love to have that recipe so I could fix it for my family reunion coming up. And the person tells you, well, you know, I really don't know. This recipe's been in our family, and we've kind of agreed that this is going to be kind of just our family's recipe. Well, that's closed source because you really don't know what's inside that recipe. Now, you could have somebody say to you, well, you know what? I could make it for you if you give me the money to cover the ingredients, and you can take it, but I really can't give you the recipe. Now, that can be a real problem when you're doing food and taking it to families, because you could very well have a family member who has allergies and things to food, and that might have it in there. And then you don't want to feel bad about sharing that with somebody, making them sick. So that's pretty much what closed source is. There's a recipe, all the ingredients, but it's kept private and no one's allowed to see it. Now, on the other hand, you might find somebody who you say, I love that recipe. You know, is there a chance I could get it? And they say, well, sure. I got this from my friend, and they got that from their aunt, and she got it from so-and-so, and we just think it's the best recipe. And so, you know, we share it, and I get you the recipe for it. That's open source, because now sitting right in front of you, you know exactly what's in it. and you'll be able to find out, is there something in it that could cause a family member with a known allergy problem, food problem, of getting sick, or at least you can be able to say to somebody, be careful, this has such and such in case you have, an allergy. A lot of times they do that at stores and say this material could have this and whatever. So open source means you know exactly what's inside of it. And you can do things like my wife does, and you can take a recipe and you can look at it and say, this might be really, really good if I added this or substituted this. She likes to do that a lot. And we get variations of recipes that are really good too. So that's open source. You know what's in it, and you can modify it because there's no rule that says you have to be strict. Cooks like to share recipes, and they don't mind where others create new and different, because that might be something, well, hey, I hadn't thought about doing that with the recipe. Lots of people coming in. And so they're glad about that. Now, when we talk about software, the closed source software is software that only the initial developers know what's in it. No one else is allowed to look at that code that goes into making that program. Open source developers are like the cooks. Their recipes or their long list of computer code is open to anyone who wants to see it. And that way you know what's in there. Nobody can sneak something into an open source program that could do some harm or anything to your computer, because anybody can take a look at what it is and see what's theirs. The other thing that open source developers like is that the ability to have somebody rewrite and improve the software. And a lot of times people say, this is a good piece of software, but if it looked like this or it could do this, it would be better. And so with open source software, you have the right, just like with a recipe, to make the changes. Now, the one thing that's important to remember is most open source software is free. And so the one rule is that you are not allowed to make money off of somebody's open source software. But just like with the recipes for food, you just want somebody else to have a chance to heat something up really, really nice. Oops, wrong one. So the second type of software is the paid software versus the free software. And most of you are very familiar with paid software because you've paid for software for many, many, many years. And today I'm going to hopefully share with you that there is a lot of free software out there that you can have available to you. So putting these together with the first two choices, we come up with this alphabet soup of mine. And this is where we have the paid closed source software. That's the proprietary software that you are mostly familiar with. The Adobe, the Microsoft, those software that when you buy it, you pay for it and you have no idea what's inside of it. You just take it for what it's worth. There is some paid open source software, usually nicknamed shareware or sometimes freeware. Not quite sure why they call it freeware. And these are people who want a little bit of money in exchange for their open source software. Most of it is under the free open source software, which is totally no cost to you at all, ever. I'm often asked the question is, well, how do these people can exist with not charging for their software. Some of these people have corporate backings. Some of them have a tremendous followers that are donating to their cause. Some people have other jobs that are paying for their, necessities of life. And this free open source software is stuff that they do on the side. And so they don't need money for it. Some software is free because there's a paid version that has some other features that the company collects enough for the paid service that rest of us can use the free stuff at no cost. Now, I want to add that there is a different fourth kind of software, and this has to do with the operating system. And we have OS specific one, and these are ones that work on one, maybe two different operating systems. I hope all these people are getting let into the meeting that are waiting. Sometimes you have programs that are only usable on Windows or Mac, or once in a while on Linux. You might have software that can work on two of the three. And that's by design. A lot of software is developed for Windows and Mac because they can pay for those. And Linux, they don't want to because there's not much of a financial return, but getting use. The other kind of program that I've added with an X is the cross-platform. That means that this software works on either Windows, Mac, or Linux. And I really tip my hats to those people that have said, I want my software to work for everybody. So my preferred software then is what I call FOSXs, free open source cross-platform software. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Now, I do have to always do the disclaimers. And I will admit that there are free programs that could be missing some features. As an example, I might use Microsoft Office and LibreOffice. There might be some features that are not available, but for me, an everyday regular user, so far I haven't missed anything. I don't even know for sure what all I'm missing, but you may not miss it either. If there is something that is missing from the free version than the paid version, then it's up to you to decide that that missing part is worth the total price of the program, because everything else is free. So you will have to admit to yourself, I'm paying all of this money for that feature. And it might be something that you really need. My bottom line is start with the free programs. If it doesn't meet your needs, then go and purchase the paid programs. Simple as that. So let me share today. I want to do a list of open source software. These are ones that I might recommend. I'm most likely using. I'm going to do these by tasks. I'm not going to be able to cover all of the free software that's out there because there is too much. So I'm going to try to cover some of the basic ones that I think you would be interested in. And of course, I'm going to have to start out with the best open source free operating system, and that would be Linux. Both Windows and Mac OS are paid software, so you're not going to get free open source there. But in the operating system for Linux, it's open source, so everybody sees all of the coding for it, and it's free. They have corporate backings. They have people who just do it because that's the fun they have. Talk about the Office suite. Of course, I'll have to mention LibreOffice, probably the #1 free and open source program applications for productivity. Just like with Microsoft Office, this includes, a word processor, spreadsheet, presentation program, which I am using today and always, a database program, a formula program, and a drawing program. All come with that. And it's pretty much the standard, it's same, use menus, toolbars. In fact, LibreOffice even offers two variations for the desktop, in that the traditional drop-down menu you see here, but it also has the ribbon menu, since ribbons have been around for a long time and people who are leaving Microsoft Office are used to that. So LibreOffice has it. Now, one other free open source productivity tool for Office is OnlyOffice. And I bring that to your attention because OnlyOffice has made it their goal to make an Office suite, probably based off of LibreOffice, since it's the one that everybody's branching off. But they have worked it with Microsoft to make it the most compatible with Microsoft. So I guess if you are doing a lot of work with a Microsoft Office user, then you might want to look at OnlyOffice, because it is supposed to be very, very compatible with them. If we talk about email client, well, we're going to talk about Thunderbird. And to me, I tell people that to me, Thunderbird is like what Outlook Express was back in the days when we all used it, probably. And this is a client, which means that it's installed on your computer for free. And then it goes out and gets your mail and downloads it to the computer. So all of your mail is on your computer. The web mail is on a web server somewhere that you look. You can configure Thunderbird to leave messages on a server, just as long as you remember to go and clean it off later. But this is the most popular one that's out there for emailing programs. Now, another new one that has come about is called MailSpring. And it has an interesting aspect that when you click on somebody's email, as you can see on the left, it says email for you and Amy Heath. It will then show you all of the emails that came from Amy right away, so that you don't have to go through a list looking at, and you can see right here in the middle that there are 12 different messages all from Amy. And on the right-hand side, it gives you a little bit about who this Amy is and everything. So this is a very interesting one, and being free, I would tell people, give it a try, because this might meet your needs more than Thunderbird might. Of course, we'll be talking about password managers. This is something that APCUG has been saying monthly, yearly. Passwords are the most important thing for your protection on the internet now, and that we need to use unique passwords and multiple passwords, not using the same ones. So we need a password manager to keep track of all of these for you. And I'm a password manager user, and it's great because I don't have to remember anything other than when I go to a website, my password manager says, hey, you've got something stored here and you want me to fill it in for you. We have workshops on, or presentations on password managers in our list. Another one, the Bitwarden, is one that's in the cloud. There is a client that works on your computer, but the main information is stored up in the cloud, which is good because that way you can be anywhere in the world, go to your vault on the cloud and get a password that you need that you didn't think you'd need. The other one that I'm going to mention is KeePass XC. KeePass was the original one. KeePass X went to the Linux, but now the newest version is KeePass XC because this is X for cross-platform. And this one differs a little bit because this one, all of the passwords stay on your computer. You can store a copy up in the cloud that you could access, but for the most part, it's on your computer. So those people who have a better feeling about keeping your passwords locally and not in the cloud, this is the program for you. Browsers, we all know about the browsers, but the important part to know is that Firefox is an open source browser, which means you know the contents and what's in the code. Most people have been using it. Chromium is one that a lot of people have not really heard about because you hear mostly about Chrome. And Chromium is the open source free browser that was the original that Chrome came from. So think of Chrome as being the locked down version of Chromium. And so you get pretty much what Chrome does, but without all of the Google added interlaced with it. Another open source free browser that's out there right now that is well received is the Brave browser. It is extremely security minded. As you can see, when I took this screenshot, Brave had already blocked over 100,000 trackers and ads and has saved bandwidth and time for me over the time I've been using it. So again, give it a try. It doesn't cost anything. It's free. And we always recommend that you have at least 2 browsers on your computer so that when something's not working, you can decide, is it the internet that's not working or my browser? When you only have one, you don't know which is which. Let's go to note taking. A lot of us do a lot of note taking, and one of the best free open source note takers, similar to Evernote, would be Joplin. And this works on all platforms and all devices and is free to use on all of those devices. There are certain note-taking programs that you're allowed to use on maybe 1 or 2 at the most, and that's it. This one works. I have a copy on my laptop, on my desktop, and on my phone. So I can access notes whenever I need it. And if I put notes on the phone, they show up on the laptop and the desktop. You can see that you organize things in notebooks, and you can have a notebook with a number of different notes inside. And then you have where you can write it up. And this is a form similar to the web one, HTML, that if you don't like using it, you can do a standard view and make your notes. But that's great because it fills up all your notes, and great. Now, a new one I just found, which I haven't had a chance to really compare it, but it looks like it just keeps notes. It doesn't have a notebook, but they're all in notes. You can do a lot with standard notes. So I would check it out. As you can see here, they got folders to put all these notes in and your favorites. Really interesting, standard notes. Now, what I used to be telling people about was something called Simple Note, because some people said, I just want to be able to make a simple note. And this is all that Simple Note does. You create a note and save it. Create another note and save it. No folders, no notebooks, no whatever, just a listing of notes. So somebody who might be interested in a very simple way might get this one. Now, the only trouble with Simple Note was that it hasn't gone well, the development has kind of slowed down. But I look at this as some of us are driving cars that might be 5, 10 years old. So there's no development to your car. It just still runs and gets you where you need to go. So just because they aren't developing somebody might have said, well, this is the way it is and it works how we design it, so there's no use to keep making changes. So some people like stability that way. So simple note, it's just not been developed much in the last few years, but it still works really well. Oh, PDF readers. One of my biggest pet peeves, and I've mentioned it to Judy too, is whenever I see a web page in one of my groups in my regions that has PDFs and there's a comment that says, you need to have Adobe Reader. And my back hairs get flicked because you do not have to have Adobe Reader. You just have to have a PDF reader. And Ocular is an excellent cross-platform PDF reader that does a good bit. You can see that there's different ways of viewing it. There's even some text selection and highlighting. But this is an excellent one to give a try. Now, one that's for Windows only is very, very good. Sumatra PDF, another free one. Back in the days, it used to be, we had a couple of other different PDF readers that we liked instead of Acrobat Reader. It did more. But when we talk about open source and the free ones, these are the two top ones right there. Antivirus, ClamWin is obviously for Windows. If you're looking for an open source, no nonsense antivirus program, ClamWin. And I call it no nonsense because it's nothing fancy. It doesn't look fancy as some of the modern ones, but it does the job it's supposed to do. You get the program is updated. You select what you want to scan, and it scans it and sees what you have. So a very good alternative if you are looking for something free and open source for Windows. Encryption, we talk about encryption because a lot of times we have sensitive information that we need to carry outside of our residence. And we either need to carry it, something like a thumb drive, as we go out, or we send things across the internet. So encryption is something that you need to have. Now, you can encrypt your whole hard drive, but if you ever lose that password, you've lost your whole hard drive. But what VeraCrypt can do really well is it can encrypt specific files. We have somebody that does an excellent presentation on VeraCrypt, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but just that as an open source software, this is probably top notch for creating encrypted files on your computer. We also need to do screen capturing. I tell the people I work with, and Judy does too, and some others, that when there's a problem, you need to capture your screen. And there's in-place ones with Windows and with Linux, and I'm sure with, Bill said, with the Macs. But sometimes you want a program that does something better. And you need to take a screenshot of a message that's on your screen, a problem on your screen. And so KSnip is more than just a screen capture. It's a video or an image editing program in which, as you can see on here, that you can add to it. I used these kinds of screen capture programs to build computer manuals for people to read. And you just take a screenshot, and then you can add all of the boxes and stuff like that. The one I used mostly before I started using KSnip was GreenShot. It's a Windows only, so that's why I don't use it now, because I use it on the other computer. And it does the same thing. It captures, and it also can deal with uploading to different places. And after you capture it, you can put this one into an editor as well. And that's the one I used for years, creating all of those computer books. But if you're a Windows person, you need to check out ShareX. This is an amazing program, and you can just see what I did was take a snapshot of a couple of the different parts of their program, the capture part, the uploading part, and the tools that come with it. This program is very impressive. If I was a Windows person, I would really be probably using ShareX as my #1 screen capture program. Oh, I forgot to say at the beginning too that all of these programs that I'm talking will be in part 2 of my presentation that has live links that'll take you right to the places that you can do the download, so you don't have to be searching the web for them. A file system viewer. This is a program that you need to have when you're trying to figure out something. The biggest thing you want this for is whenever you get a message that your hard drive is filling up and you're trying to wonder what is filling up my hard drive. Now, don't look at the bottom part. The bottom part always makes my eyes go blurry. I do the top part. This will tell you exactly where all of the which part of your drive is filling up. There's another program that I recommend when I'm not talking about free and open source software. It's called Tree Size Free that does this thing great. And the reason you want this is that I had somebody come to me and said they got this message that the hard drive was just almost full, and they went through all their system and they couldn't figure out and find out where, because they didn't have that much in their user on their home, documents, pictures, whatever. When we ran the file system viewer programs like the WinDirStat or the Free File Sync, it finally told us that it was a different user. He had another user on his computer. He was just checking the one he always used. I don't know why he had the other user, but it was discovered that the other user had a link to his his Apple cloud folder, his iCloud. And so everything that he was putting up from his phone to his iCloud was being copied to this other user, the one that he wasn't using. And once we found that, he could go in there and get rid of all that stuff, and his computer was fine. But we would not have found that if we didn't have a program like this that will actually tell you where your overload is. So WinDirStat is the one for Windows. I'm not quite sure. There is something I read for a Mac, but I'm not quite sure if it's also open source. Maybe somebody will put that in the discussion. But if you're a Linux person, you've got ECOTUC, which is same as WinDirStat, only Q is part of what Linux uses for their desktop development. And it does the same thing. It tells you exactly where the clog is. The bottom part is just kind of fun to look to see because they code all of the different types of files that you have so that you could see that. There's another one, KDirStat, but I think the QDirStat is the one that Linux users are more using than that one. Okay, we got to clean up your system. We get too much junk in there. And the best system for cleaning up in open source software world is BleachBit. And the reason I think that is it gives you so much control over what you're going to get cleaned. And you can see on the left-hand side, and that's not the whole screen because I think there's something that couldn't fit in the shot. But you can see that you can go through these subcategories and you can pick and choose. Like you can see on this one, I did not choose to do a deep scan at this time. So I left those boxes undone. The program will tell you each part, what will it clean, so you can run it. Then what's neat about this program is BleachBit has a preview program that says, okay, this is what you want to. Let's see what it's going to actually get rid of. And then you can see, oh, no, I didn't want to get rid of that. So you can come back to your controls on the side, uncheck that, run it again, make sure it's not going to get rid of something you want, and then you can hit the clean. So there's a good bit of parts to do on here, because there's you can't see it, that there's a settings so you can combine that. But you can see on here that it will take care of all the different browsers, and you can clean things out of the browsers, and then you can get a deep clean. So bleach bit. Backing up. Next month, you're going to hear us talk about these. Just to talk, most of these programs are cross-platform. That's what kind I like. Once in a while, there's a program that isn't cross-platform, but go to the website and you can find out for sure. But I want people to know that, yeah, most of these are cross-platform and works on everybody. File backups. This is the most amazing program that I discovered from somebody else's presentation, and so I'm stealing it and putting it in mine. Free File Sync. It is a free program, but I want everybody to know it's such a good program that I'm donating and giving money to this guy because it is so good and cross-platform. And this one is just amazing the way it works. I use it, a number of other people are using it, and you can set up on the left-hand side, you can set up different backing up plans and only back up certain things at certain times. And then it goes through and looks at your computer, it looks at your backup device and said, here's what's different. Here's the program files that are new, here are the full programs that are files that are changed, and then you can take care of backing things up. Fantastic, fantastic program. Now, imaging backups. Sometimes you want to have a whole image of your computer backed up for whatever reason, whether it's a hard drive failure or what, or maybe moving to a new larger hard drive. One of the free open source that can be used by all is Clonezilla. And what you do is you make a live program, either a disk or a thumb drive, and then you plug it in and boot to it, and then you take care of backing up everything or restoring everything. It's all text-based, so some people don't like it because it's not so colorful, but this is the universal program that does all your backups. We also have a couple of company programs, Aomi Backerupper for Windows only, so that's why I can't use it. We use this with our computer club when we had a teaching lab, and we backed up all of our computers. Open source program, it was great. It's interesting to know that when you use this program, and the next one I'm going to show you, you're actually kind of using a Linux program, but you don't know it because you have to have a media that will boot to the media so that you can restore. And that's what Linux does. Linux boots everything for free. But Aomi Backerupper, and the other one is the EasyUs or Jesus, whichever way you want to pronounce this. And this one does another great job of backing up. But you also need to make a media device, and that media device is actually you're running Linux to get that to go. And it was really funny because when we're using the program, the Windows person looked at the file structure and found a folder for Linux and wondered what in the world was that Linux folder doing on that computer. And he got mad at the Linux SIG group. And we're going, hey, that's not on our part, that's your part. But that's because they have to have the folder to work when your Windows won't work. We all listen to stuff and watch stuff. The #1 top open source is VLC. So everybody needs to have that because it is not just for this. This program does a lot more. You can see that there's a conversion tool right down here. And so you can do a lot more with VLC than people realize. So get it because it's free and open source, and check it out because there's a lot of other things you can do with videos and your playing back of stuff. This is more than just a video media play. If you're looking for a program to play your big collection of music, a lot of us have taken our CDs and digitized them so that we can play them off the computer. This program called Strawberry, it's a takeoff from a program called Clementine, which is an older one. It's cross-platform so that anybody can do this. You can listen to all your music. You can also probably get online and listen to music out on the world on internet channels. But an excellent media player for those that don't want to use the the iTunes player, if they're still even using that. If you're into doing a media center, we have a program on that. Ray Baxter does an excellent program on this, and the open source program that you can set up on your computer is called Kodi, and it'll play all of your videos. And my understanding is that you can set it up so that people who aren't living in your home can even access and watch your home movies and stuff. As an image editor, a lot of us are having to edit. And if you want yourself a full versioned program for editors, it's the GIMP, the graphical image, something. I always get lost with it, but that's what it's the GIMP really is program. It's a full-featured program. You can see it has all the tools that you'd have like in Adobe Photoshop with all of that if you're really into that. Another interesting image editing program that I tell people about that are really into that is one called Darktable. And if you think about it a second, Darktable Lightroom. This one really has some extra features, including the one where you have a before and an after, so that even before you do it, you can slide this line across the screen and see all the changes. So if you're into photo and image editing, you need to check out both the GIMP program and Darktable. If you're doing audio editing, Audacity is the one. That's actually, it's like the only one. You can't get one better than that. And as you can see, that this one is not just doing a track. I used Audacity when I was trying to convert cassette tapes to digital, because you would use this program and then you would save it as like an MP3 or whatever, and you would get the part at the bottom. And that part was just good enough because you could be able to splice it apart, cut out scratchy stuff, especially if you had records that you were doing. But this is a whole audio that you could have multiple tracks, so that if you were into that kind, you could have a vocal one, a guitar track, and there's one that's for the rhythm track. It's great. Now, on the other hand, if you're doing video editing, Kdenlive is the program you want to take a look at. Cross-platform for a free program. It's used by professionals too. It has beyond what I can do. I'd love to be able to do some of this stuff, but you can see it has multiple tracks and does all sorts of stuff. It's a fantastic program called Kdenlive. Now, you can also get one that's really, really good. It's called Shotcut. I don't know if it looks less scary than Kdenlive, but this one is another excellent cross-platform program. If you do a lot of video editing, you can see how you take the pictures from up here in the top, and then you put them down here in the tracks and move them together, and you do transitions and all of that fancy stuff. If you want one that doesn't seem as intimidating but does a good job of video editing, it's called OpenShot. And basically it's the same thing. You load up your files and you put them in your tracks where you want them, and you can see what they do. They have transitions. But I think some people think that it doesn't intimidate you as much as that. There's a couple of other programs that are not open source that's on my other presentation. that are fantastic, but we're sticking with open source today. If you're into 3D, and I did a little bit of experimenting with this with my son who's into this business, and it's pretty neat because it's, you know, nothing like the regular visual editing, but you can create three-dimensional things and you can move them around and rotate and all sorts of stuff. Blender 3D is used by professionals. It's a free program, but the professionals will use it because it's so good. Here's something brand new I just discovered, and that was because of somebody else's presentation, or I read it somewhere. I'm not all into AI yet, but here is an image editor called Upscale that is web-based, or you can download it, and it will do a number of enhancements. I think it's more of a enhancer than an image editor, and it will show you, like you can see that it has that line going through, and it will improve. It will try to take a picture that wasn't taken very well, figure out what needs to be done to make it look better, make the sky look better, whatever. So I would, if you're into playing around with AI, check out Upscale. Zipping up, we don't talk so much about zipping files, but a lot of times if you wanted to send a number of photos to somebody, your email program might have a limit to how much you can go. So having a zip program or an archive management program, you can bundle them up together, dehydrate them, and then send them off, and then at the other end they extract them. 7-zip is one of the main ones that we do. I can remember from my young days in computer that there was WinZip. It was a paid program, but you could try it out. And the problem was that you could try it out forever. You were supposed to buy it or purchase it, but you just try it forever. But 7-zip, totally free, open source, works great. And the newer one that I like is called PZip. And it just has maybe a little bit more modern look. Does the same thing. You grab the files you want, and then you put them together in a zipped one, or you take a zip file and you can extract it. For those that are into genealogy, this is a fantastic program. I don't really use it. I want to, but I just can't find the time to do everything I want to do. We've had a presentation. We have an expert who could tell you all about Gramps, cross-platform, but I'm not telling you the whole program, but you can see that you can set it up and create your family trees and put lots of information on there. And you can see from the category on the side, you can take information you get from some of the online places and put it in here. But if you're into genealogy, I would recommend you get Gramps and give it a try, and you might find out, hey, this free program does everything I need. I just need to spend my time finding all the information to put in here. And then finally, those people who do a lot with ebooks, and you keep a lot of different kinds on your computers, Calibre is the one you want to get because it organizes and stores and keeps track of it. A lot of these, didn't mention, a lot of them are not only cross-platform, but some of them are cross-devices. Like the Joplin, goes on all of your devices and does other operating systems. So a lot of these are that way as well. So Calibre to check out if you do a lot of ebooks. Are there others? Oh yes, there's thousands of more. When you go to one of these websites I've got listed here for you, you'll find a whole bunch. The OS, which somebody think it looks like OSALT, but it's open source alternatives to paid programs. You can go there and say, I'd like to find an alternate to like Adobe, Photoshop, and of course you'd get the GIMP and a few others like that. You can also go to the free open source software.org and go to their main index and find tons of open source. I didn't have time enough to do all that's in there. So like that. And the last one is on SourceForge, which is the biggest place of keeping open source material. And you go to there. So there's a lot more, and you just need to visit those and find what you're looking for. So I want to thank you for letting me share my ideas about open source with you. And if you would need to contact me, my presenter contact is an easy one to do, freejohn@protonmail.com. And so that you can do that and real well. And that's just for adding to video and PDFs. So the second part that you're going to get, and I'm not going to go through all this because it's just all the listing of all the files, is going to be a live link to all of the download sites. So if you are interested in looking at these rather than having to go and try to find the right place, I've done that for you with all of these on here so that you can do it. And that pretty much ends that up. I know that's quite a lot, but then you get to have in your follow-up, if you have done your homework and made sure that Judy knows who you are, you'll get that whole follow-up in there. So Judy, back over to you. Here she comes.
It was suggested I dye my hair red, but I'm going for purple instead, and then I can call myself a new presenter, so we would have a new volunteer.
Okay.
I tell you. Is it safe? Let's see. Is there one site like FileHippo where you feel it is safe to download some of these programs?
I do my downloading from their own site, because you've got a number of ones, you know, FileHippo, and you've got the one that's the Army doctor one. I can't remember his name now. I think you're the safest by going to the actual website, because there you're going to get the download. They're going to tell you which versions, what operating systems, what devices. So my feeling is go to the source. I used to use FileHippo and some of those, and they're good, but I would go to the websites that I listed to find free software and then go to their place and get it from them.
Thank you. Do all versions of Joplin have web clippers for capturing information from web pages?
I think my Joplin does. I'd have to fire it up to see. But then again, since I wasn't teaching what the things do, go check out their website and find out for sure.
Look for reviews. Is there a problem with security for freeware, particularly those that are not updated frequently?
Absolutely, because being freeware, everybody knows what's in it. That's the thing. Whenever a proprietary software gets, let's say, hacked, there's a small number of developers that have to discover it. Whereas in the open source world, you've got people who have nothing better to do than read computer code, and they find it. It's the same thing when a website gets hacked. We had one Linux website that got hacked. It wasn't the software, it was the website that was storing the software. And it was a matter of short, I don't want to say minutes, because it was probably more than minutes, but it was nothing like the proprietary people, because it was immediately found out that that was the bad one. They got to that website, stopped it, removed the bad part, and it was back up and running. So open source is just like I said with the food. you know, you don't take a chance on eating something that's going to cause somebody some food allergies because the recipe lets you know what's in it.
Thank you. I got a chat from someone. He registered, but he didn't get the link. And I just want everybody to know that I send out the link to everybody who registered. I do not know why they don't reach you. I had 3 that bounced because their email address was incorrect.
Oops.
They're usual attendees, so I could look back at another spreadsheet and find out what their email address really is, or they're in my contact list and it's easy to do. All I can say is check your spam folder, check your ISP and say, why are you blocking this? You know, but if I get it before we start, and then within like the first half hour, I keep checking back and forth to see if anybody else is there. And I bet at the end of the workshop, there's going to be a couple of people there who came in after I stopped checking. Okay. So I wish I knew why, but I don't. Do you search with everything from voidtools.com?
Nope, I haven't heard of that. Is that the everything goes on a Windows machine?
After Marshall asks his question, Steve Parker will explain what he means. Do you have any PDF editors?
Okay, I have a lot of questions that people popped into my chart, and the answer to these are yes, 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 yes. Go check the website. I didn't have time to do everything, but yes, there's PDF editors. Yes, there are cache programs. Yes, and I wanted to make sure that I told somebody that if I share this computer, you'll see that this Windows computer does have Bleach bit on it. So it's not just a Linux program. Most of what I tried to do was with cross-platform, but BeachBlit runs on Windows. I've got it right on this one here. Yeah, there are tons more. I didn't get into everything because it's running out of time, but there's a number of other programs that people have mentioned. There's just too many to talk about.
Richard from Australia recommends Patch My PC.
It's not open source, so that's why I didn't put it on here.
To download.
Right, but it's not open source.
Got it.
It's on my other presentation on free software.
You know, when you mentioned my name, thank you.
Yeah.
Richard,
but yeah.
None of us who like Patch My PC. Any FOSS personal finance software is similar to the old Microsoft Money or Intuit's Quicken? Our usual question there.
Yep. And you have to go and look and see, because there's a lot of under, you know, you go to that OS Salt, you know, open source alternatives, type in what's an alternative to Intuit, you know, or whatever you're looking for, and see what they have to say. And I'll have to say that there are some programs that won't work on Linux because they don't want it to. Flat out. They don't want to take the time to develop it. But you know, I don't have all of the thousands in here. So that's why I give you the website to go and be amazed at how much open source software there is. And you can find many different versions, because in open source, like I said, with a recipe, somebody can take program A and modify it and it becomes program B. And then somebody can take program A and B and take the best of everything and make program C. So now you have 3 programs that do the same thing as this initial program. It gets crazy out there.
And you're so happy about that.
Well, yeah.
I missed a bit, but did you talk about Scribus Desktop Publishing? It's terrific and well-supported FOSS.
Yep, I can't tell everything. And the same thing for Inkscape, which is a vector drawing. I didn't include that because time restraints, and not as many people know what vector drawing is compared to bit drawings. So yeah.
Does only
we could go 2 hours on this, but I didn't want to.
Well, hey, mine is 12 slides. I'm short, sweet, to the point.
Yeah.
Only Office includes spreadsheet macros.
You'd have to go to the website and see, because I don't like Open Office because they want to be too much in bed with Microsoft.
So we can find the open source software. We go to Hippo, and there's something at the top that says open source software here. Click.
Yeah.
Oh, there is?
I think so.
Okay, good guess on my part.
Yeah.
Foxclone is a great FOSS disk backup and cloning software with GUI. It's usually used on its own bootable Linux, also known as a thumb drive. Okay, I'm going to go over to Marshall.
Marshall had his hand raised, so we were able to find him and let him unmute.
Yeah, and it's even hiding in the tree. Unmute, lower left-hand corner, Marshall.
Yeah, okay. You already answered my question about the PDF editor. And so you already answered somebody else's question about risk of malware. I'm happy. Thank you. Great presentation.
Okay, don't forget to lower your hand, though.
Ah, yes, thank you.
Aha.
And one of the hard things is that when I did this, because this is Open Software Month, I created this workshop with only open source. And there are a lot of good free software that would be in my second category of not open source that we would include in a free software program or presentation.
Charlie, your turn.
Okay, so my question is, here we are talking about open source and we're on Zoom. Is there an open source version of that?
Jitsi.
Yep.
Jitsi.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Is it robust? Does it always work?
Yeah, have you used it? Yeah.
Most a majority of Linux groups use Jitsi because it's open source. And there are other groups, because it is open source, they use it. Now, Judy's trying to say, does it work all the time? Well, Zoom doesn't work all the time either. But this is not a free open source program that we're using. This is a paid program. We're paying good money for this Zoom. And so we're expecting Zoom to work much, much better. But our Linux group in my club, we use the Jitsi, and other groups, and Jitsi is the free version of another company's paid version.
Oh.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to get everybody to download it and learn how to use it. That's the challenge, right?
Oh.
I don't think that the Jitsi is much. When I usually include that in a presentation on remote access, I didn't do that because we're all remote accessing, so we know this. But it has almost all the same buttons with the mic and your camera and your chat and your share.
Okay.
Yeah, it's free. Give it a try. I'll do it with you.
No, very good.
Charlie.
Yes.
We have a group that uses it, and somebody through the Speakers Bureau program was asked to do a presentation, and that person said, I'm not going to use Jitsi. And so they asked me to make the security presentation, and I did, and it was no big deal.
Yeah, Good. I'll try it for sure.
Yeah, do that. You can go on, online, download it. It can even be hosted on a machine in your place. You could host your own Jitsi server, but we don't do that.
That's nice. No, yeah. But yeah. Very good.
Last question. Murray, it's your turn.
Okay, yes, I was just going to say that our group uses Jitsi. Part of the reason it uses our Linux group, part of the reason is that for the free Zoom, you're limited to 40 minutes at a time, which is a bit of a nuisance, whereas Jitsi is unlimited. And I would say that it's just as easy to use as Zoom. And we found it just completely reliable as well.
Thanks, Murray. Judy, I did find out too recently reading that the free Zoom now has a 10-minute required gap before you can start another meeting.
Okay, and I was just going to say, we have a group here in SoCal, actually Central California, that has used the free Zoom from the beginning, and they take a break. They get up and go to the bathroom, get something to eat, let the dog out, let the dog back in, play with the cat, whatever. And they've been doing that from the beginning, and it works for them. And that's their board meeting. And for their regular meeting, they have distinctive parts of their meeting. They just take a break.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting now that the break minimum requirement is 10 minutes.